How do you become a long-distance runner if someone's stopping you from practicing running? You can't. How do you become someone who's equipped to confront danger if you're never allowed to confront danger? You can't. So if you're someone who's been stopped from confronting danger your whole life, and then you get to be an adult, how are you going to be? Well, you're going to be a coward. And unfortunately, we use this in a kind of like as an insulting thing, and that should tell us something. The fact is that we all intuitively know, without having to be taught, that a coward is a bad thing to be. Cowardice is a negative thing. Now, I wrote up here, conformity does not equal cowardice. These are different things, and I'll point out in just a minute. But if we had chosen correctly on which assignment to study next, we could have learned about this, but we didn't, so it's okay. There's an assignment I spent like over 30 hours putting together, and then you guys didn't vote for it. So I'm like, it's okay. I'll just leave it on my hard drive. I'll ask him next year. But in short, it talks about these distinctions between, you've got these two different types of people in a society. You've got the herd, which is just like the masses of people, most people. And then you've got this person, which is referred to as the higher person, the person who's able to separate themselves out from the herd and then pursue things like individualism. It takes courage to separate yourself from a group, because a group in itself represents safety. Now, of course, to be safe, you have to conform, because you can't be yourself and be part of a group. As much as we think that we can, you can't. It's kind of like, what do you do if you're a Democrat but you're against abortion? That's a big part of the Democratic platform, is to be pro-abortion. And so if you're not there, then you're not fully part of that group. So you have to say, well, I'm against abortion, but, you know, we get more done in groups, so I'll join the group. Then you're sacrificing that part of something that's very important to you. You have to conform in that way. What if you're part of the Republican Party, but you believe that we should expand our social welfare systems? Well, you can't be part of the Republican Party and hold that view consistently. Consistently, I'm saying. And so what do you have to do? Well, you have to kind of ignore that part of yourself in order to stay part of the group. And the idea is, because if I go off on my own, I can't get anything done, because it's me against all of society. So it takes courage to stand on your own and to not conform. Now, we have to be careful. Anybody in here, how many of you guys in here like wearing shoes? You like shoes? Okay, a bunch of conformists. You have the option. In other words, everybody wears shoes. So if you wear shoes, you're just a conformist, right? No. Maybe you like wearing shoes. If you like things that lots of other people like, there's nothing wrong with that. What's wrong with the problem with conformity is, if you're that person who says, man, I hate shoes. They're bad for your skeletal structure. They slow you down. And then, but you know what? Everybody else is wearing them, so I guess I'll wear them. That's where the problem comes in. If everybody, does anybody in here not like tacos? So you guys all like tacos? Conformists. No, tacos is good. Shoes is good. If you do things that everybody else does, there's no problem with that. The problem is when you don't want to go along, but you feel compelled to, and so therefore you do. So the higher person is the person who separates themselves out from the rest of society. But that means that you're going to be shunned by most of society. You'll be called names. Why? Because in order for the herd, in order for society, for the herd to maintain its position, we might say, it has to stop people from leaving. Kind of like a communist country. Why do they put the razor wire facing inward? Why do they put the guards facing inward? Because a lot of people, if they had the options, they would leave. That's one of the ways that you can tell that a system is good or not. If you're here right now, are you allowed to just leave? Not really, right? People get in trouble and all that. If you're in a university and you get up and you go, well, I've heard enough, and you walk out, are you allowed to do that at a university? Yeah. And what's the difference? People here try really hard to get out of being here, and people in university are paying tens of thousands of dollars a year to go there. So weird thing. All right, you have to come. No. And even if I come, I'm not going to do anything. Okay. And then fast forward 4 months. Oh man, I really want to go to that place and spend $40,000 a year to go there. If you want to go, you'll spend the money for it, but that's the difference, because you don't have to go there. You can tell which systems are working and which ones are not by whether they have to force you to be there. Society, the herd, has to make it uncomfortable for people to leave. Because if they don't, there goes the herd's power. Because the only way that the herd has power is collectively, together. So there is a collective power that's there. But there's also an apathy that forms. Because you have to give up parts of your belief systems. You have to give up parts of yourself. You have to allow someone else to represent. You have to conform. You can't be part of us unless you conform. You can't be in the room unless you sit at your desk. And you have to sit at your desk, but you can't sit at your desk unless your desk is in a row that somebody else decided for you. Otherwise, you need to go. You know? So the higher person is the person who separates themselves out from society and pursues their own thing. It takes courage because you're one person, so you're sacrificing safety. You're going to be struggling with yourself because there's a lot of cool stuff over here, a lot of cool people over here. You know? And then these folks, what do they get to do? They get to just kind of go about their daily lives. This is a person who's going to struggle against themselves and against them. The herd oftentimes doesn't struggle against themselves. It's easy not to struggle against ourselves when you're part of this collective, especially in our society now. If you're struggling against yourself right now in society, what can we do? We can give you antidepressants. We can drug you. We can distract you with screens. We can give you all kinds of things to pacify you so that you're not thinking about the fact that you've had to conform and give up part of who yourself and never really be yourself in order to belong, in order to have safety. But think about the thing that's being saved. It's not you, because that would be you over here. What's being saved is this collective, this entity. And ultimately what happens is that if you sell out long enough, and again, if you're part of this, it's fine. And what I'm talking about here is people who are doing things just so that they can belong. There will only be so much time that you can do that before you have to kind of numb yourself to face the fact that you're not who you are. In other words, the behavior system that you're applying to your life is not the ethical system that you're thought of in your head or felt in your heart, whichever one is more meaningful for you. And over time, you end up going and you becoming what is referred to as the last man, the person who seeks safety and comfort over individuality. This is the person who numbs themselves versus the person who wants to feel everything. Who wants to feel everything. You can get to a point where this separation between feeling and thinking, between passion and reason, completely disappears. And you can be that person. In order for this to happen, they have to keep that division going. This is the person who can do both. And with this person right here, you can fall in love with an idea. An idea can make you sick. This person avoids those kinds of interactions. This is the person who confronts themselves. This is the person who doesn't, because it's hard. And confronting yourself is painful because then you start to look around and realize, like Scarface, at the end of the movie, sitting in the restaurant, doing everything he thought he was supposed to do, and then asking himself, is this it? This is what it's all about, man? And as he leaves, everyone's looking at him because they all know he's part of them, but they don't respect him. And he keeps thinking, like, I'm here for respect. And you can get people, and he confuses fear and respect. So as he's leaving, he says, that's right, say goodbye to the bad guy. And everyone's just looking at him like, yeah, you are the bad guy. You're not one of us. Because you're starting to separate yourself out. And ultimately, this is the person who we can maybe say has never been achieved before, the Ubermensch, the person who is the higher person, a super person, the person who is such an incredible individual and confronts suffering. And moreover, ultimately, affirms life exactly as it is. Not life how we want it to be, not life how we can pretend for it to be, but life in all of its suffering, and life in all of its almost indescribable beauty. All of it, the whole thing, so that you can live your life and confront all of it authentically, real, not pretending it's something that it's not, so that we can numb ourselves, but to confront it exactly as it is, and to live in such a way that after you die, if a demon were to come to you and say, we're going to play your whole life for you on repeat like a movie. You have to watch your whole life. from beginning to end, and experience it exactly as you did. You can't make any changes. Every suffering you went through and how you responded to it, every situation, every spark of beauty that you either embraced or cast away because you weren't supposed to embrace that beauty or that charm, or whatever that positive thing was that could have given you some level of appreciation and meaning and purpose, but you have to embrace your life exactly as it was. At this point right now, I wonder if that demon came to you and said, this is going to be your eternal life. How many of us would sit there and say, oh my, you are a demon from hell. You're going to make me live my life exactly as I've lived it? Go back to hell where you came from. Now I wonder how many of us would get to the end of that movie, look at it and say, this was my life? Again, let's see it again. For all of eternity. If you're constantly conforming, I don't want to say it's cowardice, because if you're somebody who is that person, then that's just who you are. And to not be that person would be conforming to an ideal of something that you're not. But you have to know what you are. And not try to cover it up with pleasantries of like, well, I mean, no, that's just who I am. Even though inside you know authentically that's not who you are. It's a hard thing to do because you have to sacrifice all of those goodies that go along with this. And there are goodies that go along with this. You just have to figure out if it's worth it, man. You know? Would you want that for your kids? Would you want that for your loved ones? So the opposite of courage is not cowardice. It's conformity. It's going along. Because cowardice, at least cowardice is an emotion. When you tell that 3-year-old not to go in the room because Kui's in there, it excites a passion. So there's an emotional reaction to that. It's guttural. It's even intellectual. There's a fear. And fear is something that can motivate you, something that can stop you. It's how you use the fear. But courage is something that we have to learn because courage is who you are. Courage is built into the very structure of being itself. And so if you don't pursue courage, I mean I'm talking about the courage to live, the courage to seek truth, the courage to speak truth. Because if you sacrifice those things, if you reject those things, you're rejecting life itself. You're rejecting being and existence itself. So to embrace courage, because to embrace fear gives us an opportunity now to embrace courage. If you've never gone up on those jungle gyms, is that what you call them, jungle gyms? You've never hung from that high bar when you're like 3 years old and you're looking down at something that's 100 feet down. In reality, it's like this far, you know, but because you're 3 years old, you think it's 100 feet. And you can imagine the alligators are down there and it's summer, so your hands go, and you got the one hand and you're terrified if you don't fall. If you don't have the if someone comes running over to you and picks you up and goes, oh, no, you can't hold it. That was scary. And then puts you back down and you're like, that's scary. You're not being given the opportunity to confront danger, to confront fear, which means you can't become courageous. And if you can't become courageous, you can't embrace being in life exactly as it is. It stops you from being what you could be, is what I'm saying. And so, it's not cowardice, it's conformity. It's going along with it and sacrificing who you are, sacrificing your being. This takes courage. This takes courage. Happy Friday? Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticism, critiques? Yeah.
Well, you use the example of the kid on the monkey bar and the old
monkey bar, why'd you correct me?
Well,
now I'm forever on the internet saying jungle gym like an idiot.
Well, I mean, the jungle gym, I feel like...
That's all anyone's going to hear. He said jungle gym.
Well, what do? You just let the kid drop, or what?
Yes. What's the worst that can happen?
They die.
You're going to die from falling on their legs 3 feet down?
Well, I mean, if they fall on their feet, my brother, that happened to him, and we just let him fall. No, he didn't die.
Okay.
But he fell back, and he broke his arm on a pine toe, so it's just like...
Cool.
I mean,
so what did he learn that day?
I don't know.
He learned something he could not learn any other way.
Hold on, man.
Hold on. Don't, there's your limit. There's your limit. You guys ever You guys ever piss off your parents just to see how far you can push them? Yeah. Because now, and then at some point you're like, okay, that was the limit. But you couldn't have learned it any other way. That's how you learn what your limits are. The problem is that for a lot of people, man, your limit's like over there by the window. But we stop when we're right here because we don't realize that that's the limit. You have to break your arm once in a while to find out what the limit is. You've got to catch the chocolate in the face so that you know what the limit is sometimes. You've got to get punched in the face somewhere to find out what the limit is sometimes. But in all of those things, by the way, you discover something really important about yourself. That you survived it, and you can keep going forward through it. If you convince yourself that the kukui's there, and so therefore I shouldn't go over there because what's going to happen? Something dangerous, something scary, because remember, those are the same things in that little kid's head if we program them that way. And so what that means is, what's out there? What's out there? You don't know if you've never gone. You don't know. And that's the thing is that, at the risk of making it sound too like rah-rah and kumbaya, I genuinely mean this. You guys are capable of so much more than you possibly can fathom at this point. You know, some of you I know are just worried about the immediate things of tomorrow, and I understand why that is, and I get it. And tomorrow is meaningful, and tomorrow does have things that you have to worry about, especially if you're having to struggle with very basic things. But that excellence is over there. If excellence was here, everybody would be excellent. And that is what you could be. That is what you could achieve. But many of us will never know it because we're never going to either test our limits, we're never being allowed to test our limits. In anything. Physically, sure. Intellectually, absolutely. In love, yes. In emotions, in effort, in all of these kinds of things. If we allow ourselves to be cocooned in such a way that this is our whole world, we don't realize that excellence is over there. And it is. And you can get there. And I wouldn't tell you that you couldn't get there if you couldn't. At the very least, you can be better than you were today by venturing out 10 feet, 20 feet. I mean, think about whoever it is that you admire. And if you can't think of anybody you admire, think about that. That's important, man. And we have so few role models today. We have so few role models today. And that's not a good thing, but if you can think back and imagine one, excellence was a limit that they had to test. And you fail many times before you get there. Of course. And failure sucks. People who say, like, failure is just opportunity waiting for you. Yeah, tell that to the person who just fell and broke their arm on a pine cone. You know, opportunity's just around the corner. Is there a doctor over there? Help me out with this? But yeah, you're gonna break your arm. I'm gonna lie to you. Everything is gonna be okay, guys. The world is beautiful, and you're gonna be fine, and everyone's gonna accept you just as you are, because you're all stardust, and you're the thing of beauty. By the way, everything I just said to you is absolutely, well, half of what I just said to you is true, without the sarcastic tone. But if people aren't going to accept you, so what? What's going to happen if you try to change the world? Think about it. What happened, let's see, Abraham Lincoln tried to change the world. What happened to him? He got shot. Gandhi tried to change the world. What happened to Gandhi? I'll help you out. He got shot. JFK wanted to end the CIA and end the wars in there. What happened to JFK?
Brain freeze.
Brain freeze. He done got shot. Anwar Sadat signs the first peace agreement between the Middle East and Israel in history. The Jewish people are so happy for it that they decide to have a friggin' parade for him. They encourage him to wear something really bright and sit up front. Take a guess, what happens to him at this parade? He got shot. Well, how about John Lennon? He tried changing the world through music. Anybody know? He got shot.
Did what?
No, she deserved it. But at least Jesus didn't get shot, right? Although he did get some holes. But that's a worthwhile thing to think about. Right? If you try to change the world, what's going to happen? Well, you're going to get shot. Or you look at someone like Jesus who, regardless of what you think religiously, most people, whether they're religious or not, even regardless of what religion is, most people in the world can look at Jesus and go, he's an alright dude. He's a pretty good guy. Holy guy. Just with what he said, just with what he did. And yet, when he goes to be born, there's no room for him in Jerusalem. He has to be born in a manger outside of town. As he grows older, he goes to the church. There's no room for him in the church. The church casts him out. As he grows even older, there's no room for him in his family. His own family casts him out. He doesn't belong there. And even when the guy is crucified, he has to be buried in a tomb outside of the city. Even in death, he doesn't fit in. And you have to sit there and wonder sometimes, why is it that the world could not get along with the holiest man who ever lived, but somehow it gets along just fine with you and me? Are we compromised? Or maybe the world has changed enough to allow people like that to come in, so we stand on the shoulders of those giants? Well, think about the heroes that you can think of throughout history who have been persecuted, or who have faced opposition and struggled. How is it that the world couldn't get along with those people, but it gets along fine with us? And yet we'll put their posters on the wall and go, yeah, that guy, or that woman, that's who I admire. Well, how come it killed you? Are you a follower of that person? Yeah. Why'd they kill them, and yet it loves you? Why could the world not love them? Who, if that person, the person you admire, maybe they were a better version, maybe they were a better archetype of this character than you are. How come the world couldn't love that person, but it loves us? And I'm not saying, by the way, that you should go out and run around and go, good, I have made myself hated, so now I must be right. People who make themselves hated aren't right. I'm not saying that at all. All I'm saying is, we should, have to do anything. I don't have to do anything except for stay white and die, I guess. But at some point, I guess, in life, we should reflect and ask ourselves, am I conforming to this, or am I conforming to who I am? And maybe who you are is this. Fine. There's no problem with that. But if you're not, don't cover it up and just say, oh, yeah, I am, because we don't want to deal with the issue, because it's going to catch up with you. You're going to pay for it. We all pay for what we do. Sooner or later, we all pay for what we do. Don't try to convince yourself otherwise. It's going to catch up with you at 2 a.m. at some point when you're laying in the dark thinking about your life. Hopefully it doesn't catch up with you when you have children. You're trying to figure out why they are the way that they are. And then you have to reflect on yourself and say, wow, now there's two big problems to deal with. Yeah.
Oh yeah, didn't Frederick Nietzsche say that Jesus was the only Christian, the only true one?
Yeah. Yeah, Nietzsche said that Jesus was the only Christian who ever lived. A friend of mine used to say that Christians don't tell lies. They just go to church on Sundays and sing them. We like to, but I don't think that that's limited to just Christians. Others?